Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, as always, joined by Callum and James in the studio. How you going, guys?
Yeah, not bad.
Good. So tonight we're talking about episodes 5 and 6 of Nathan Fielder's HBO show, The Rehearsal. I almost said Nathan for you.
Yeah, that was his previous
Nathan
show.
for you too.
Yeah.
More awkward, more genius. Yes, awkward boogaloo. Episode 118 of the podcast covered his first 4 episodes of this new series. So please listen to those if you're interested in the show.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to 118 of the podcast, that's where we cover the first 4 episodes of the first season of The Rehearsal. So make sure you listen to that first.
Provides important background context.
Yeah. And also probably make sure you watch The Rehearsal, even though...
It doesn't take you long.
Yeah, it's the short 6 episodes, half an hour. But also, like, we can't spoil it because nothing we say will make any sense if you haven't seen it. And even after you've seen it, it won't make any sense.
So I tried to explain it to my boss at work, and he didn't get it, but he goes, "It sounds like you're playing The Sims." And then I'm like,
yeah, in a way.
I'm like, yeah, but it's a lot more dangerous than that.
Yeah, I'm like, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things. I've seen people try to describe it online, and it just looks like word salad.
Because in episode 118, when we talked about the first few episodes, and we're trying to provide context for like who Nathan Fielder is and his style of comedy and what his old show Nathan For You was like, and it's like so hard to describe to someone. Yeah. He's like a combination of Louis Theroux and Sacha Baron Cohen, maybe.
Yeah, with like some Kaufman thrown in for
like Kaufman-esque, but also like. You know, I said he's got like such a weird deadpan personality. It's like a Mr. Bean thing.
Yeah.
And then
without the obvious humor.
Yeah, and on top of that, there's the cringe level of something like Impractical Jokers, where you're just so embarrassed for what's going on.
That's the real people element.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to describe to someone like his shows, and this show, The Rehearsal, is just.
See, Nathan For You is easier to describe, right? You can just say, oh, it's about a guy who failed at business school, a comedian who pretends to be a guy...
No, he got good grades, remember?
Yeah.
I think, like, the difference...
and then he goes and pretends that he tries to help people with his terrible business ideas, and you kind of get the idea. But this one is a lot more complicated to describe to people.
Well,
it's a lot more high concept.
I feel like, let's explain it this way. Nathan For You and his other previous work... He was the joke, right? He was where the humor comes from in his awkward, really bad business kind of... It was...
Yeah. And the people who go along with it.
The people go along with it. But they're like, the people aren't necessarily the joke. Where I feel like this is Nathan Fielder being like, I don't want to be the joke anymore. Everybody's the joke. And I feel like The Rehearsal's a lot more complicated in the fact that his previous efforts, it's like Nathan For You, he was the joke, right? Because it's his business.
But I think he's the joke in this one too, because of how many self-aware...
Oh no, he is.
Yes, but there's also collateral damage.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But there was collateral damage in Nathan For You, but nothing like it is in The Rehearsal.
Yeah. That's it. It's a lot more... Mean-spirited isn't the right word.
Oh,
but as you know, like the way I contextualize it is like he does make fun of people whether they're aware of it or not. Like we talked about how the gentleman with the problem with the gold digging girlfriend. He made the guy go and dig gold.
To be fair, that dude was saying some anti-Semitic stuff in front of Nathan Fielder.
That's also true.
And he deserved what he got.
Oh no! I'm not saying he didn't deserve. What I'm saying is he definitely manipulates people more obviously on screen than he did in Nathan For You.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot more... I've seen it described as sinister, and I won't say it's not sinister.
We talked about it, yeah. There's definitely a sinister undertone to the whole thing. But do you think... Because he's always involved in the... Shenanigans of Nathan For You. But in this, he's even more involved, and it's even more quote-unquote personal.
He's hands-on, yeah.
Yeah.
He's all over it.
It's just... Because everyone was just like, when it came out, it was like, oh, this is like a spiritual sequel to Nathan For You. But this goes beyond that.
It has a different feel to it as well.
Yeah. It's like...
It's not as
It's a lot more... It's
funny.
in your face.
Yeah, it's more of a psychological thriller.
Another way of looking at it is you see the fallout. So in Nathan For You, you see the funny ideas on screen, but you don't have to see the repercussions after the episode finishes.
Nathan For You is also more like serialized, like each episode... Is it serialized or episodic?
Episodic.
Each episode is self-contained. He helps a business,
that
has a wacky idea, probably doesn't really work.
Yeah.
And then at the end he says something funny, and then the next episode is about something completely different.
with Nathan Few, the camera stopped rolling, the joke ended, whatever.
Yeah.
But in this one, he says the joke. The people react to the joke sometimes in a funny way. Sometimes they're upset by it.
He actually says it in episode 4 when he's doing the actors, and he's like, in this, usually if there's a bad performance, you ruin the show. But in this, if there's a bad performance, you ruin someone's life.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. It's like, so you see beyond the joke, you get to see the fallout as well.
Yeah.
When
And the
to
fact
use
that's
a metaphor,
an overarching story for the 6-episode season.
To use a metaphor, like when the cameras stop rolling, you still get to see how people are feeling because it's like suddenly it's outside of the context of that one specific joke.
And also, the rehearsal has a pretty big social media boom around it.
Yeah.
Well, that's because
So-
everyone's show shocked.
Yeah. So it's like when Nathan Few came out like 10 years ago or whenever it started, it was just like social media was a thing, but not like the way it is now.
Yeah.
He's always been good at getting viral hits too. He's so smart.
Yeah.
Like even with Nathan Few, he had dumb
But now-
Starbucks. He had that pig saving something.
Yeah, and everyone it was on the morning news, and they're like, "Look
Yeah.
at this heroic pig." And then people only found out it was completely fake when the new season of Nathan Few came out,
What's his-
and he shows how it's orchestrated.
What was his puffer jacket thing
Summit
called?
Ice.
Summit
I want
Ice.
to buy one.
Yeah, it's a real
Yeah.
brand that he started as a joke on Nathan Few.
Yeah, he
and-
wanted a guy to sell some merch in his clothing store, but he wanted it to be like Holocaust awareness.
promote.
Yeah, and the gentleman was like, "We can't do that. That doesn't make any sense." And he's like, "I'll do it."
And he did.
He made
And
a
you
whole.
can still buy
I'm pretty
them.
sure it's a profitable business. Like he made an entire
Yeah.
business out of this idea. And you go onto the
They're good quality
website, and it's
jackets.
it's like a normal shopping website. But then when you click like the about button or whatever, it's just like full of like World War II statistics.
So like Nathan for you definitely always had that social media aspect and that outside of the show aspect. But the rehearsal goes to a next level where now that social media is the behemoth that it is, like the rehearsal lives outside of in the real world as well.
Well, I mean, we were surprised to see that like the Nathan Fielder School of Acting. That was like a legit business, and there's like people took photos of it, and like
Is it still running though?
no, but like it
Okay.
was running for
At
a
the
small
time.
period of time.
Yeah.
And it's like we'll go into spoilers later, but it's like some certain bars that just popped up that you could just walk into and
look,
buy.
we
that
assume our
was
listeners
funny.
have seen episodes
I think it doesn't matter what we say because, like I said earlier,
Yeah.
it won't spoil it because it won't make
I'm
any
saying,
sense.
this is a
But yeah,
unique case.
my point is like it's like Nathan Few, but it also interacts with the real world in a tangible way.
Yeah.
At times, not always, because part of the show, of course, is
And
set in its self-contained universe of the
because-
house and the family.
Because the show is so meta, and because of that outside social media aspect, it just adds another layer on top of a show that is all layer upon layer, Inception, madness upon inside madness.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I think social
It
media
adds another real life layer.
And I think like the fact that social media really has been on board with this show in some way, it snowballs, right? Because you've got in the first 4 episodes, there's a character that's introduced as a potential love interest for Angela.
For Nathan.
For Angela, like the
second. No, you're talking
I
about the
see
second
what you
episode.
mean.
The
yeah, it's the
second
one in the
episode.
first 4 episodes.
Yeah,
Second,
I
in
see
one of
what-
the
I
first
see
4
what you
episodes.
mean, yeah.
And then it turns out, like, people found out who this guy was on Twitter. His brother was like, "Ha, see what a bad person he is.
Yeah.
He's like this in real life
Now
too.
you
It's
can
not an
see
act."
how
Yeah,
crazy
And,
my brother is.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's that element of people aren't sure what's real and what's not with this show.
Yeah, which adds
And
to the
that's-
mystique.
Yeah,
Which adds to
because-
the mythos of the show.
Yeah,
right?
the mythology is a better word, isn't it? 'Cause
Yeah.
he's becoming a mythological
Yeah.
character. He's
And-
like a trickster god.
And that's what, we talked about it on episode 118 where we talked about, the first few episodes, how Sacha Baron Cohen, where the character ends and
Yeah.
Sacha Baron Cohen begins. There's a scripted sort of
There's a
planned
general
element.
idea, yeah.
There's
know,
a general idea for the story, and obviously there's real people involved and variables.
Yeah.
The rehearsal takes it to another level where it's like combination of reality, real planned comedy,
And then adapting to events as they unfold.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
part of this
it's
is
insane.
I did read something about this on the internet, where
It's so
it
hard
was-
to describe.
Back in the day, apparently Nathan Fielder was a writer on the Ali G show.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And obviously he worked with Sacha Baron Cohen on Who Is America.
Yeah.
But apparently one of his skills, especially during the Ali G era, was taking all the random footage that they shot with Sacha as Ali G and weaving that into a cohesive kind of
narrative
structure.
Yeah.
Like the rehearsal...
And it's more of like he can take something and edit it into like a narrative.
Like, you know...
And that's the kind of the frustration of the show is... I know it's all real footage, but I don't know how much of it is authentic. How much of it is...
That's the thing, is like we talked about it the last time. It's just like, yes, every documentary, every quote-unquote reality show has a heavy scripted element. There's obviously a lot of editing, a lot of manipulation, and this has a lot of that.
Yeah.
But there are moments where you know a real person is being affected.
Yeah.
And they might be pushing them in a certain way, and they might be editing things to make a person look or sound a certain way, just the way Sacha Baron Cohen does or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's on another level in this show because you're just like, I was holding my head, mouth, jaw dropped.
Yeah.
Like the
the variables.
Yeah, it's just like, what is real, what is not, like what is okay for them to do ethically and what is not. It's just
they push the boundaries.
Yeah, especially in the last episode.
The first episode is what I would consider probably the most real episode of the show, right? Because you've got, that dude was fessing up.
Yeah, that's the one that's the pre-COVID episode.
Even with the extreme cringiness of the whole situation, that's the one that felt most like a Nathan For You episode.
Yeah,
where it's like, okay, here's the idea.
I could 100% say that was kind of like. The drama, I guess the human drama was real in that episode, right? Because he was like, you could see him, like, but the rest of it, I'm not so sure. And the more I think about it, I'm like, I don't know. How would they get away with some of this?
It's like, because I was made able to stomach watching every episode twice. So the first time I watched it, you get that gut reaction, that really cringy.
Yeah.
Like, I was like holding my stomach going, oh my God. And the second time, you still have that.
But since you know what's coming, you can analyze things a bit more.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, this is so heavily edited and not scripted, but there's definitely a manipulative element. It's like, I can see
editorialized.
I can see where they took a audio from somewhere else and laid it over a scene, so it looks like someone's saying something at a specific time that they probably didn't say it, which a lot of documentaries do, a lot of quote-unquote reality shows do. Borat-style movies and shows do that all the time. But yeah, even then, I was just like...
Yeah, but does that matter when the narrative they're trying to tell you is equally as disgusting?
And the fact that it's both disgusting and the most funniest thing I've ever seen.
I wonder if that's why they had to sign so many NDAs. Because it's like, when you're signing on to a show like The Rehearsal... Anything,
the narrative's fluid.
Anything you say and do can be completely recontextualized for the purpose of the show. Probably in this instance, much more than your average reality show or documentary.
When you appear on any reality show or documentary, you sign a waiver saying like, we can use the footage of
however
you in any way we want. So it's like, that Simpsons joke of sweet, sweet can... they make Homer look like a sexual predator.
I remember
when he's like sweet, sweet candy, and they make him sound like a sexual predator. It's just like, if you sign a waiver, they can do whatever they want.
Well, I remember there was some drama a while back, a couple of years ago maybe, where a gentleman went on to the Jim Jeffries show in America, the Australian comedian who has a talk show in America.
Yeah,
at least he did at the time. And he asked him a question about Middle Eastern politics or something like that. And so he said he's answering good faith. He left the show, whatever. But then when the episode aired, it had been edited and recontextualized to make him sound like he was supporting some type of terrorism or something like that.
Yeah.
And then he went on Twitter and he was like, he actually had his camera filming. He secretly set up his camera filming because he'd heard that some talk shows like Jim Jeffries, not like the serious late night talk shows, but some of the smaller comedian-centric talk shows have a bad habit of changing what their guests say, so they get their social media bursts or whatever. Their clicks.
Yeah.
So I'm it's sad to see, but it works in a show like The Rehearsal because it's not,
and because it's also like trying to fit a narrative and also trying to be a great comedy, which it is. Yes, they might make certain people look really bad, but also it's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's just...
it's something else. Like, I think that like we're dancing around the kind of, I guess, the the part of the show that I guess really kind of it left people a little bit iffy, like when this sort of like the last episode, well, Perfect Daddy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Should we skip straight to that? Because that's the core of the issue.
Let's just skip straight to it, right? So this is also the show also has a good message, really, to say about working with child actors.
Yeah, kinda inadvertently.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have so essentially what happens is Nathan Fielder and Angela, I guess, are raising these kids. Is 0 through 18. But when you're dealing with the younger kids, say like the 6-year-old
actors, and
he maybe doesn't have the best home life. He doesn't have a father figure in his life. Again, we don't know how much of it is real and how much of it is scripted or manipulated.
I think everything with that kid, was 100% real.
Most likely.
Which is why it was so uncomfortable. And it was like ethically, we were like, I don't think this is okay. But also, I think Nathan Fielder knew that. And that's why at the end of the show, he goes through that experience from the mother's perspective.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what the hell is he doing? He's reflecting, which he did in episode 4, where he got the actor to play... He was playing the actor, and then the actor was playing him.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what is this show? I'm an actor on a HBO show, but it's supposed to be reality, so I'm acting. So, I want to do
I don't want to be that
job.
guy.
Like, he's aware of
but
what he's doing.
if you listen to Nathan in the show, it's a show about the art of rehearsing, James.
So anyway,
you could say that. I don't know if that's...
Anyway, the kid, what kind of practitioner would he be if he also didn't practice the art of rehearsing himself?
So the kid gets confused, as any 6-year-old probably would do.
Remy is the real
child.
Young Adam.
Remy.
Yeah, real name. Who plays young Adam, the kid in the experiment.
Who doesn't have a father figure in his life and attaches to Nathan Fielder that role.
As one would?
Yeah.
As one would, a 6-year-old in a very weird situation that is not anything close to normal life.
No.
And you feel really bad for the kid, right? Because the kid doesn't really know what's going on.
He starts to think Nathan is his dad, and he starts calling me daddy even outside of the context of the show.
And
which
I bet
they thought what a gold mine we're sitting on.
Which is a sad situation, and then Nathan leans in.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he's taking advantage of a bad situation and using it for supreme comedy and just nefarious.
And it's absolutely amazingly hilarious, but it also makes me feel kind of dirty.
Yeah, it's so cringe, and he basically invades the lives of the kid and his mother. Yeah, and uses that as an opportunity to research their lives, so he can undertake a rehearsal where he plays the mother and another older actor, 9-year-old kid, plays the 6-year-old Remy, and he's like, how could I have done it differently? And it's just so bizarre.
I remember when he put on the clothing and he looked in the mirror and he had a wig on. I was like, no.
He's wearing the nail polish. He's dressed like the mother.
He's got the tattoo on.
Yeah, we were like, no.
This is. In all the years I've known Callum, I think that's the hardest I've ever seen him laugh.
Yeah, I was like sour for practical jokers. I couldn't.
The last 10 minutes of the rehearsal, last episode of the rehearsal, Callum was laughing so freaking hard.
I couldn't help it. Just the idea that he was going that deep into the project. And
it's layers on layers. The whole show, it should just be called Layers.
But Nathan was for Youception.
Nathan was telling me that the someone on social media was saying that they knew the woman and she absolutely wasn't an actress. She's not an actress at all.
No, yeah.
So it's like she's like
I think that part of the show was definitely real, and Nathan used that to his, manipulated that situation and used that to his. He probably didn't know that kid was going to attach himself and start when that kid is crying, that's real. And Nathan is like, you don't want a hug, please don't be sad. But then it's cuts and he's narrates and he's like, oh, he's going to squeeze every single drop he can out of this.
I think the best way to sum up the way he treats the people around him in the show is that after he has that final moment with the mum and the boy with older Adam, so he can say, look, do you see, this is older Adam, he's playing the older version of you. What was the kid's name? I can't remember. Not Remy, the other
Jack?
one.
The older one.
Jack?
Oh, I can't remember.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, he gets in the car and he says to the
Did you
boy,
get enough?
"Did you
Yeah.
get enough?"
Yeah.
And then they drive off.
It's like, because...
It's like he feels nothing.
Yeah.
It's all just he has to find
Nathan-
out what does he want to control in each
It's like
scene.
Nathan Fielder got addicted to
the power of being
like,
the puppet
Like
master.
Nathan is trying to explain to this 6-year-old kid who thinks he's his real daddy. He's like, no, we were just pretending. We were making a TV show.
Yeah.
I'm Nathan, you're Remy. It's not Daddy and Adam. That's a pretend. That's just for the TV. Now we can just, we're friends. We don't have to. And the kid doesn't understand. He's crying. And it's so awkward. And then he brings over the older actor, the 9-year-old kid playing Adam, and is like, see, he's playing Adam as well. And you think he's trying to do the right thing, and the kids are playing together, and he's talking to the mum, and he's like, do you think Remy will be okay? Do you think he'll get over this?
Yeah.
And the mum's like, I know he'll be okay. And he's like, how do you know? Like, please tell me. And then they leave, and he's like like you said, to the 9-year-old actor, he's like, did you get what you need?
for the Fielder method. Yeah.
And then it's just like, oh, that 9-year-old kid was researching Remy to play, and it's just like, this is so sinister and makes me feel so dirty. And then they recreate the mother's house on the soundstage.
In
It's
the
like,
warehouse.
oh
And they
my
do this
God.
they do behind the scenes stuff, I guess, that isn't shown on the show, where you see the mum being like, okay, time to go for this audition.
Like Nathan's dressed as the mother. He comes home, checks the mail. There's mail in the mailbox, like fake mail.
Because you know why? The art of rehearsing, James.
It's like, so he's like trying to get so realistic, and it's just so bizarre. When you open that door and the fake grandmother's there, and they've recreated the house in the set, I'm like, this is like some sort of hell.
Yeah.
Like you're in some sort
he's
of...
stuck in a hell of his own making.
Did you guys ever end up watching Synecdoche, New
No,
York?
I didn't get the time.
Because we mentioned it on the first episode when we discussed the rehearsal, and it's like that. It's almost like a horror movie where it's like this guy keeps getting deeper and deeper into this acting of
Recreation
replacing
of New
people
York,
with real life people with actors. And it's such an incredible movie, and Charlie Kaufman's a genius, and it's one of the greatest films ever, and I love it so much. And I was like, you guys have to watch it. But I feel like after the rehearsal, it will be ruined for you guys, because you're going to be watching Synecdoche in New York, and all you're going to be thinking about is Nathan with that wig in that mirror. And it's just going to be so silly. It's like watching the serious version of a movie after you've already seen the parody version.
Yeah, if you watch Evil Dead 2, and then you go to watch number 1, and you're like, oh.
No, that's not a good example. Maybe watching Scream after you've already seen Scary Movie 100 times.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
You know, like, it's just like, oh, everything's so silly, and it's like, no, it's just because they made fun of it,
Yeah, like parody.
Yeah, and it's just, I feel like you're gonna watch Synecdoche in New York, an incredible, heartstring pulling, mind bending Charlie Kaufman insane movie, and all you're gonna be thinking about is Nathan Fielder like eating the chocolate bar, pretending it's poop.
To be fair, the kid was riffing. Dr. Farts.
Dr. Fart.
Yeah. Is it cancer?
Hello, Dr.
Yes.
Fart. Yes. How what can we do? Can you cure it? Eat my poop.
Yeah. And I love how upset Angela was over that whole joke. See, that's what I love. Where Angela's like, "That's disgusting, Nathan."
I reckon Angela's an actress.
No, so the first 4 episodes, I was 100% certain Angela was a real person.
Yeah.
Her weird, way of speaking, her weird Christian ideology, there's no way that's an actress. Episode 5 was the first time I was like, this might be an actress, and we might, Nathan Fielder might be messing with us.
Yeah.
There's another layer to this insanity. There was just too many perfect moments where he's like, what's your favorite movie? And she's like, Apocalypto. I like Mel Gibson. And I'm like, there's no way that wasn't scripted. There's no way. And then later they're arguing about, the movie, the home movie he made with the kid, Dr. Fart. And she's like, oh, it's disgusting. You ate poop. And he's like, it's a chocolate bar or whatever. And she's just like, he's like, don't you know what comedy is? And she's like, yes, I know what comedy is. I watch Key and Peele. Yeah. I'm like, there's no way she just came up with that. Like, she got to be an actor. And then by the end of the episode, she leaves. She's like, I've had enough of this experiment.
And according to her on socials, She reckons that her and Nathan wanted different things from the show, and that's why she left.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that was true. Maybe she was told to say that, because that's the thing. Like, we don't know.
Yeah.
I want to see a whole documentary series about behind the scenes of the rehearsal, because I feel like there's so many bits of... That's the thing. On one hand, it'd be ruined. The show would be ruined if we knew the mysteries behind it.
Yeah, but
on the other hand, there is that part of everyone.
The show's...
I want to know... I want to see, like, a from Nathan Fielder perspective of how this came from storyboards to how it ended up in HBO. Like, I want to know.
Like,
you know?
two things. One, I think the original intention for the show pre-COVID
would have been similar,
much different,
similar to
what
Nathan
the show.
Yeah,
exactly. But was much different to what the show ended up being. I think when they saw their opportunities, they took it and branched off into other weirder places.
Yeah,
and so like that's one thing. And then the other thing is because the show's apparently been renewed for a second season. So we don't know how meta this is going to get. Like, the second season might be a reflection of the first season.
Yeah.
Being like, oh, here's what I did wrong. Here's how people reacted on social media.
Like,
we don't know how deep this rabbit hole goes.
Yeah.
It's insane. I feel insane watching it and talking about it. We're not doing it justice. It doesn't make any sense with the words coming out of my mouth.
Hopefully, it turns out Nathan Fielder's been behind the HBO Discovery merger all along, and it's all just it's one big practical joke.
Yeah,
everybody.
He cancelled Batgirl. He's going to release it online for free.
Yeah. He sets up his own theater in some random place. He's like, you want to see Batgirl? Come on down.
Well, like he does with the bar from the first episode where they recreate the bar. He's just like, I felt bad with this bar just sitting here, so I decided to, put real beer on tap and put an entrance to it and like make a real working bar for people to come in called Nate's Lizard Lounge.
Yeah.
And he's like going around like talking to the patrons being like, I'm Nate of Nate Lizard Lounge.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And he's like, oh, I felt bad. I decided to use the bar, that HBO was paying for. Like, it's so self-aware. I love
the fact that
wink, nudge,
he's always referring to the fact that he's spending HBO's money.
Yeah.
And I think that living in this current week that we live in, this crazy couple of weeks that we live in.
Yeah, what's been happening.
It's kind of hilarious to see that like HBO is so concerned about money on one hand and saving money for whatever reason.
And they greenlit this and he's just doing whatever he wants.
And
it doesn't make any sense.
And then Nathan Fielder's like, let's go build this because it's not my money, haha. And at the winter scene, for example, do you know how expensive it is to maintain winter all year round or whatever?
Yeah, that was so insane. They're like, the crew is like doing fake snow all over the house and the camera zooms out and I was like, hey guys, watch this shot.
Yeah.
Zooms out like drone shot and you can see the snow just ends on the corner of the block of the house. And it's just so insane. I'm like, but see, that's the thing is the show is kind of sinister and manipulative and that kid crying and he's like, call me Nathan, I'm not dad. And it's just like, so uncomfortable. Yeah. But then he knows what he's doing and he's wink, nudging the whole time. The fact that he has this long speech at the end of the series talking about, what he's done and, he's like reflecting on it through the eyes of the mother and like maybe we shouldn't have done this show, maybe acting for such a young kid isn't right, and he's like reflecting on what it means to be a parent and what it means for this young kid. And then the show, like the last shot is him getting up off the ground and like plumber crack and it's like the whole thing is like a huge troll.
It's like, here's this big serious speech, now you're gonna see my ass crack. And the
like
rock credits.
It's such a like middle finger like troll moment.
It's because you know what it is though, I think that he enjoys being the topic of heated conversation online. You know what it is. So he
never breaks it. Like, he's silent.
He
never talks about it.
Character.
He doesn't talk about the show on social media. He doesn't do anything. He just lets the show's madness spiral.
Have you seen when it
did get renewed for season 2? All he did was post a picture of HBO stock price going up.
He's always got something in his back pocket.
You know that you've seen the meme of that gentleman against the wall, and he's got that smirk, that devilish smirk on his face, and there's all those people yelling at him. It's an older meme.
I'm sure I've seen it.
Well, that's what it reminds me of. His reaction is, it doesn't matter what happens, whether it's Nathan Few or The Rehearsal, he just like soaks it all in.
Yeah, that's
know?
the thing. I think
He gets strength from it.
He's like Andy Kaufman, where he's a provocateur, not in the same way as Andy Kaufman, but he like feeds off that reaction. He's a comedian, but not really in a traditional sense.
I suppose that's how you maintain relevancy now. You know what I mean? Like people are always thinking about his product. They're always talking every week. They're talking about him. We've talked before about water cooler shows. This is like a great example of like a water cooler show where people are like, oh, did you watch The Rehearsal? Like, what's he going to get away with next week? I have no idea.
I guess, because it's so insane.
Especially to like the HBO execs who, let's be honest, most execs in streaming come from the traditional industry where like water cooler conversations were very important.
Yeah.
Like you needed people to always be discussing it because it kept interest high.
It's interesting because, social media, that hype around it and that activity and the algorithm is like so important. So that's probably why they're like, he can do whatever he wants. Relatively, it probably costs not a lot compared to some of their other shows.
No, it doesn't cost anything compared to House of Dragons.
Yeah, Game of Thrones they're not spending Game of Thrones money.
It's not $58 million an episode.
Yeah, but it's still like, it's like they're doing it because it generates that discussion, that buzz. Yeah. But it's just so interesting to think about that. It's like
it keeps subscriptions going.
Yeah.
Kinda, yeah.
And also, even people who haven't seen the show are like, what's going on with this crazy guy that I've, never heard of? Because he's not the biggest comedian, especially outside of America.
Yeah. I suppose that's the danger. Is it too, like, what's going to happen when he gets so big that he can't really get away with stuff anymore? It's like Impractical Jokers. Everyone in America, at least, they know who the Impractical Jokers are. At least the northern parts, maybe.
They're not,
they're still not.
They're not the biggest.
Yeah.
They're not Jackass level.
No, they could still fit into a mall in New York and get away with some stunts easily.
Yeah.
They're not going to be recognized.
It's like, what's Nathan going to do when he's like a household name? I
don't think he'll ever get to that point.
See, the difference between him and Sacha Baron Cohen is Sacha Baron Cohen has over-the-top, larger-than-life characters.
And he has movies.
And his profile's a lot bigger.
I suppose he's his own brand.
Nathan Fielder looks like a normal dude. Like he's not bombastic.
We talked about, he always stays in character. Yeah. Whereas Sacha Baron Cohen is an actor. He's been in other movies. He does activism and interviews and your public speaking.
Much higher profile.
It's different.
It's different. Like Nathan Fielder, I don't think he'll ever be as big as Sacha Baron Cohen or anything like that. And
it's better that way because it's mysterious.
Yeah, but also kind of like if you see Borat, you know it's Borat, right? If you see Nathan Fielder, you can be like, that guy looks a bit like Nathan Fielder, but I'm not 100% sure. So
if you approach him and be like, are you Nathan Fielder?
Like, no.
He'll be like, no, and you walk away.
Yeah.
And he'll walk away, and then when you look over at him, like, what the hell? He'll like wink like really awkwardly, like
it'd be
double
like that
eyes,
whole Bill Murray like stealing a guy's chips and like no one will ever believe you, like walking away. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We'll be back. We'll be back right after this short break. You're back on the Tuesday review, talking about episodes 5 and 6 of The Rehearsal, and our descent into madness, I suppose.
I feel like I lost my mind.
Yeah.
That's the show. It's draining comedy, but it's like it's important.
Yeah, because it transcends anything we've seen. It's like watching a brand new, and pun not intended. It's like The Rehearsal is like a brand new form of art.
I've heard it described as a post-reality show, which I'm not sure exactly what that means. But
that's an interesting.
It's like it references reality shows while also making fun of them at the same time.
Yeah,
but it's interesting because we've talked already about the idea that it's both scripted and unscripted, and
which that's existed before. Yeah, but this takes it to another level.
This we genuinely don't know where the line is in this show.
Yeah, and there's also the meta aspect and the ethical question.
Yeah. Well, one thing I saw on the show, on the Twitter after the finale aired, was this show is a good advertisement for making sure if you're going to be working with very young child actors, that you have like a qualified child psychologist either on set or available for routine.
Not only does the kid need meetings. A psychologist, I think the audience needs one after they witness the show.
Also, the whole show is a meditation on our exploitation of other people to an extent.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh, it's like... what I did want to talk about today, and this is a perfect segue, is it kind of holds a mirror up to reality TV and says, am I so different than Keeping Up with the Kardashians, for example? Like, Keeping Up with the Kardashians obviously doesn't come from a place of comedy, But Nathan Fielder makes it very obvious that he's presenting a vision of his own design to the audience. Like when we're watching it, we're aware that he has his own goals in mind. But like we were talking after watching the show, you were saying all reality shows, whether they be documentaries or in this context, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, the Ozzy Osbourne show they had a while ago.
Even those shows are very heavily scripted and manipulated and edited.
Yeah, I mean, it's a spectrum of scripted or unscripted, right? But they all present an editorialized view decided by the directors or the showrunners or whoever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's interesting to think about how do reality TV shows reflect ethics in their production, because I was thinking about this yesterday, thinking about this, reviewing this show. I'm like, where do we start? Where do we go? Because it's such a complicated project for us to untangle. Because like we sometimes say on the show, we review shows, but we're also like we deconstruct and we analyze and pick things apart. I'm like, where would we start with this? And I thought ethics. For me, that was like my first place. Was to my mind, that's the first thing I go to is the ethical implications of the show.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if I think about other shows, for example, they present certain body images, like Keeping Up with the Kardashians. They all present a certain type of person.
It's like, those Real Housewives shows or those supermodel reality shows where there's like cat fights and people screaming and pulling hair. And it's just like, and that's why people consider reality television trash. It's just exploitation and it feels dirty. And so there's an ethical question there. But this takes it to another level where not only is there children involved, but the host of the show and the person who's also involved in the experiment, quote unquote, and is also manipulating the events, is also using it as a way to explore
this idea
and deconstruct the idea itself. So it's just like he's doing something ethically wrong, and then
the fact that
milling over, am I doing something
that's what I was saying.
Wrong
like the
on
fact
the show?
The fact that we get to see him prepare, for example, like the behind the scenes stuff, that to me that's signifying an intent for us to understand that he's a mastermind behind the whole process. I mean, I'm pretty sure he probably even says that at one point. Whereas you look at other reality TV shows and it's presented as this cohesive product, you don't really get to see the seams, if you know what I mean. Like it's not
the behind the scenes.
Yeah, what I mean is like you don't get to see, like you don't tell it's edited in a certain way or whatever. They try to make
that's another layer of the show that we don't see is the behind the scenes of the behind the scenes. Like there's producers and writers and there's meetings and there's post and pre-production that we didn't see.
No,
and then the stuff we do see
has already been
behind the scenes has already been
presented in a certain way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But like it just made I had a train of thought going because I'm like, really, pretty much all reality shows are at some level unethical, unless it's like some nature documentary or something. Because I'm like, whenever it deals with real people, it's like in an American context, how often do you see like a reality show about real people just living their real lives? Just, people of average complexion, average size, average
we talked about
height, whatever. And I'm like, it's always like a fantasy is what I'm trying to say.
But even those like that, if a farmer wants a wife or whatever, I don't watch these shows. But, even one of those shows where it's just like, just keeping up with these family members.
Yeah, even then it's still fantasy.
Exactly, yeah. And it's manipulated and edited to show
like you
things
think
in a
like they all
way.
probably run lions, right? Like they would probably all rehearse.
They would do.
It's not rehearsed.
They would probably run through a situation.
That's what I mean. I'm like, not literally
they
lines.
say, the producer or the cameraman will say, do that again. There's actually there's a YouTube video about it, more than one, but Kids Ranch or something like that. There was a show in the late 90s, early 2000s. So it's a really bad idea. They put a whole bunch of young kids on like an old West ranch with no power and, an old water mill well. And they're like, just go out and survive. And, at the end of the show, one gets eliminated. At the end of the week, one gets eliminated. And it was just a huge disaster where these kids were just crying and whatever. And one of the kids who's now a bit grown up was interviewed and he's like, there was one bit where I was crying and I wanted to go home and the cameraman was like, can you do that again? Or the producer was like, so, it's like, that was obviously ethically wrong and a stupid idea.
There was one show that had, we'll say, consequences that weren't that manipulated for the contestants at least? Was it obviously it's a very dated concept now. It was a different era.
I know exactly what you're going to talk about.
The legendary show, was it There's Something
about
what was
Miriam.
Something about Miriam. Do you remember this show?
Oh,
it was when we were in high
school.
And
oh god, that hasn't aged.
No, it was a different time.
Say,
we're not condoning the show.
It aged like milk, as
the kids say. But this show definitely wasn't faked, right?
Yeah.
Because the secret that Miriam had was that she was transsexual.
Yeah.
And she was a romantic show trying to win
a traditional dating show.
A
traditional dating show.
But that none of the guys knew that.
Yeah. And that was like the reveal after you've already won the show. That's the reveal.
And then the guy sued the show.
Yeah, and he also, I'm pretty sure he also decked one of the producers in the office of the whatever.
I'm sure that I'm sure I've heard stories like that before. Where,
but like I said, it is
punched or
it is a spectrum of scripted and unscripted.
This is the first time where it's just like,
I'm not sure. Yeah.
No, it's just like, well, you hear about stories like that and the producer getting punched or whatever, or cast members getting, quote unquote cast members, the real life people, the subjects getting into fights, and it's like you hear about that and it's one thing, but then it's like there's this show. And it's just like, well, this is just genius comedy. Like those shows, it's just like, that's not nice. Like, why did they do that? I don't want to watch that. This is like, this is genius.
Because he knows how to finesse.
And he's self-aware.
Yeah, but what's interesting to me is I don't know how far down the rabbit hole of social media you've gone in trying to look up some of these people, if they're actors or not actors, right? I don't know how far you've
There's a lot of web sleuths, so I'm sure.
There's some web sleuths going down
there.
And a couple of the characters, we're not going to name their social medias or whatnot, but a couple of the characters have said that maybe haven't been depicted in the best light on the show, that they call him a bad person on social media.
Nathan Fielder?
Yeah, they say he works with the devil and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'd like to see the behind the scenes.
Yeah, but it's just like, if you were a subject, like that guy we were just talking about who was on the Jim Jeffries, who was edited in a certain way. Of course you would be like, hey, you suck, you ruined my life.
Yeah.
And people, because it's a quote-unquote reality show or documentary, people think you're a certain way. So that's obviously.
Look, I would, if I was manipulated by Nathan Fielder, I'm sure the episode I would be featured in would be hilarious.
Well,
but that's the thing. Also, we would be like, that's awesome.
Yeah, but also depending on what he did to you, you might be a little frustrated by it.
I think that
especially if people are online, if he makes tweeting at you, and ruining your life.
If he makes people think that you're some type of person that you're not, whether he intended to or not. Because I don't think anything. So he acts in a sinister way, but I don't think he does anything to people in a malicious way.
No, so the people make themselves look like idiots to a large extent.
Everything he does is in the service of the show, not necessarily at the service of injuring others. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so he's trying to get the best joke. And
if that comes
storyline,
if that comes at someone's expense after they say or do something dumb.
Yeah.
That's what the NDAs are
trying to bury them.
For instance, the Robin from episode 2.
Yeah.
He's. I don't think he's quite happy with his depiction on the show.
Well,
but he didn't come across well, and I don't think that was scripted.
Yeah. No.
He did those things.
No,
he said those
and when
things.
his brother tweeted, this is what he's really like now. Everyone really like now. Everyone.
For instance, when I'm not talking about his personal habits, whatever else. When he's like, "No, I'm cool to drive," and he was obviously high. And he's like, "Do you have a license?" He's like, "No." "Do you have license plates?"
But
no.
see, in that case, I'm like, this is a case where we don't know. Obviously these moments were cherry picked and edited in a certain way, but they happen consistently and constantly throughout the episode. And so it's like, if it was just once, you'd be like, "Oh, this guy's."
It's
a bit,
like, you can blame Nathan Fielder for thinking you don't come across as well, but you still said on camera in front of this man that I'm cool to drive, even though I don't have a license or license plate.
That's what I was going to say.
That wasn't the first or last of the.
That's what I was going to say.
You did.
So it's one thing to smoke. So in context, he smokes some marijuana in his apartment building. Now, in a lot of places in America, it's legal to smoke marijuana.
They're in Oregon in that point. Yeah. I think it's legal.
But that's not the issue.
No. What I was going to say is, so it's perfectly fine for him to do that in the privacy of his own home, but he is knowingly doing things in front of HBO cameras, having signed the NDAs, so he'd be at least familiar with the idea that Nathan's recording everything with potential to use it however he wants. he can feel mad at Nathan Fielder for making him look like an idiot, but he did all those things in front of HBO cameras.
Yeah.
So
the great hosts, Louis Theroux does this. Even Sacha Baron Cohen as a crazy character like Ali G or Borat, they do this thing where they let the person give them enough rope to hang themselves.
Yeah.
So they go, they go, oh, what's this? Even if they're a crazy character, Borat, oh, what's this? The person then says something crazy, and Sacha Baron Cohen or Nathan Fielder or Louis Theroux will just kind of let that lie and not even say, what's wrong with you? And try to provoke them. He'll just be like, oh, okay.
They let them further explain themselves in that awkward silence.
I brought up Robin for one interesting little tease that we might get of like kind of how the show is structured, right? He alludes to on his Instagram account, he said, someone asked him like, why did you leave? And he's like, I'm not allowed to say. But he's like, I know babies, like I know, he said, I know on Instagram, he said, I know babies cry. I have one of my own. Like, I know babies cry, whatever.
Yeah.
I signed up for that. But so it makes it seem like there's an NDA, but it wasn't his decision to leave.
I think
so. In a way, it's like there's stuff like that where I can say, yeah, maybe Nathan made you look like in a bad light for just ditching in the middle of the night when you didn't. Yeah. I'm not saying the dude's not a fool.
I definitely think there are moments like that, or when Angela leaves, or other moments where I'm like, oh yeah, there's definitely context missing.
Yeah.
Well, Nathan's told him he has to leave because we're changing the direction of the show, and I want to be the daddy.
Well, at least in.
But that's what's so crazy about the show. There are moments where he's just like, to Angela, it's like, oh, can we do this? And she's like, okay, if you think it's a good idea for the show. And it's like he's on camera saying the experiment's out the window. I'm just going to do whatever I want because it's funnier for my character arc.
Yeah.
Like, it's so meta.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's like, yes, there's obviously that sort of structured element where Nathan decides that he's changing the direction of the show mid-filming. He's like, pivot. I think we're doing something else now.
We said earlier, it's like the original idea for the show were the rehearsals, and then and the Angela rehearsal might have been the overarching thing. Yeah, but at a certain point, he's like, I see an opportunity. I'm going to take it.
It's to his comedic genius that he's that fluid.
He can, that's
it's
right.
like he's just.
We talked about in the first episode we did about this. It's like he's a logistical and comedic genius.
Yeah,
like and kudos to his producers and writers and all
supporting
and all
him in his crazy endeavors.
Yeah, it's just like to take this crazy, ever evolving
behemoth of comedy,
and routing it into just
what it became,
genius. Comedy and
we've done a lot of
self-reflection.
Like we've done a lot of spoiling in these 45 minutes, but we also have done no spoiling.
People will watch the show and go like, the Tuesday review did not prepare me for anything that happened.
It's funny, right? So you had, when we first started, like we said, I think we must have talked about it on episode 118. You talked about how you had already seen some of the footage before we saw it, and you still weren't prepared. Nothing we had seen before could prepare us for episode 4.
Yeah.
Nothing we had seen in the first 5 episodes could prepare us for the turns that episode 6 took.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how he keeps outdoing himself. We saw the finale of Nathan For You, Finding Francis. We're like, there's no way he can top this. Yeah. In the rehearsal, first 4 episodes, the rehearsal comes out, and it's like, wow, he's topped himself. Episode 4 drove me insane. I'm like, this is crazy.
And there was a slight breather in episode 5.
5 is like, oh wow, this is still crazy. And then 6, and it's like, he keeps outdoing himself. How does he do this? It's like that bit in Breaking Bad. He can't keep getting away with this. It's just like, how does he do it? How does he keep lulling us into a false sense of this is as crazy as it's going to get? Yeah. And then being like, mic drop.
Yeah. I know.
He's a crazy person, and he's a genius, and it's hilarious, and I can't wait for season 2.
It's kind of scary too.
Yeah, and it has that underlying sinister.
Again, the show makes you feel dirty, and it's like, okay, got renewed for season 2, but what does that mean? Where are we going from here? How much worse can it get?
The thing he tweeted, the poster of season 2 and the announcement, it had a woman
on a bed.
I don't know if she's crying, but she's like sitting on the edge of the bed, and she's like, she looks pretty sad.
Is it going to be rehearsing his in real life divorce?
That's the thing, is he's in the foreground, and it says like something like one more chance
to get it right.
And it's just like, that's why I'm thinking like, anything we can think of, he's going to outdo it because he keeps doing that to us. But like we were just speculating, like, is he going to rehearse the first season all over again from a different perspective? Is this going to be a sequel to that first season, and it's like an ongoing development of the Nathan character?
You know what though?
The best scenario would be come in and be like, so that was a giant mistake. Involving other people was the mistake, right? Because that was kind of he softly admits that the experiment was
the actor's part.
The actor's part was like it was a mistake, right? Should I be doing this show?
Especially with the kids.
Especially with the kids. So it would be refreshing if season 2 he's like, all right, we made some mistakes the first time. It's just going to be about me, and then it's like, and my wife.
Well, the first season had the poster of like him surrounded on the table with like dummies.
Yeah.
And people were like, at a certain point, he's going to get rid of Angela and just replace her with a dummy. And like, and there's a point where he's like trying to figure out why the young actor who played Adam was so attached to him. Yeah. And he gets a dummy to play the kid, and then he's like, "How about we get an older kid that way to play the young?" So there's like a 20-year-old kid.
The show where he's vaping in like the front yard.
There's a 20-year-old kid playing a 6-year-old with like overalls, going, "I love you, Dad."
And then they're tackling, and then you see Nathan Fielder like carrying him around,
like putting him in bed in these like PJs.
He kisses him on the forehead. It's so funny. And
then that same actor is outside like vaping, and it's like, oh god,
genius, absolute genius. Because it's funny, right? So that's obviously scripted for our benefit. You know what I mean? Like that, like those scenes.
Yeah,
so
but he actually went through that with the actor.
Yeah.
But then the actor probably went out for a smoke, and they got that little candid shot.
Yeah.
So it's like he's using everything available for the storytelling.
What's hilarious is you get this reality TV show-esque thing, but then you get the more traditional comedic moments that just make you laugh.
Yeah,
and that's when Callum lost his shit.
It's like there's that meme of like the guy like his forehead's sweating, he can't make the decision between pressing 2 red buttons.
Yeah.
And we make the joke about with HBO cutting all their scripted content and leaning more into reality show. There's that button of like, is the rehearsal scripted or unscripted? It's like, don't know. It's both and neither.
That new CEO guy who's just cutting everything and
laying waste.
And turning everything into crappy Discovery Plus reality shows.
It's like you can't get rid of the rehearsal because like, nobody's sure what it is.
Technically not scripted. I don't know.
Well, it's listed as like, if you look at the information show, it's listed as a docu-series, which is amazing. It's not even listed as a comedy show. If you go into the actual show, like what is the rehearsal? HBO considers it a docu-series, which is obviously tongue-in-cheek.
See, if I was Nathan Fielder, I'd edit it to say it is a documentary about the art of rehearsing.
Yeah.
Lulls you into a false sense of security.
And we are in a worrying position where, like we talked about on the last Saturday episode, where, you know, the HBO Warner new guys come in and he's just cancelling things and stuff's getting taken down off the streaming service.
I think I showed you, like, they deleted 200 classic episodes of Sesame Street.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to pay the residuals.
And there was
like, this is Sesame Street. It's for the children, man. Leave it alone.
There was you were telling me about, you know, creators of shows that are just like...
don't have access,
They haven't told them they were taking the stuff down.
And they're removing their content already from, like, their cloud servers and such.
and
there's no legal way to watch some of these shows.
People are tweeting the creators and they're like, we didn't know about this. We don't know where you can get this stuff now. We don't have.
I think one of the producers of these shows was straight up just like, look, if you want to watch it, you're gonna have to pirate it. Sorry.
Yeah. It's an insane time, and we don't even know if the Rehearsal season 2 is gonna come out.
It will, because it's an absolute cash cow. But
we, like we said, you don't know that for sure.
It has viral.
It has viral growth, which we think is why.
I think it'll come out, but further than that, who knows? Who knows how many episodes? Who knows how long they're going to be? Who knows if it'll get who knows the extent of Nathan's vision? And will they be able to...
Nathan Fielder doesn't have a nervous breakdown in the meantime.
Yeah.
Is he capable of a nervous breakdown? But like...
I swear to God, if they do his divorce... and it starts getting real touchy.
Well, that's what I thought this season was going to be about. Like you don't know how far he's going to go, but we don't know. Streaming the streaming
sphere,
spheres is changing so rapidly.
Yeah,
like we don't know. It could in a year from now, like just everything could go to hell. It's already heading that way.
It's fascinating. So in down the track, we're going to do hopefully do a review of the Sandman TV show.
Yeah.
But one of the things that people have been talking about online at the moment is, will it be getting a second season? So the Sandman season 1 has fully finished and it's trending #1 everywhere. It's one of the biggest hits on Netflix at the moment.
Yeah.
But according to Neil Gaiman, the showrunner and author of the comics that it's based on, it has to be performing at a high level for the first month before they have talks about renewal. So the reason I say this is someone asked Neil Gaiman, do you have a fallback plan? And he said, we do. He said, but those plans were made in 2019, which was a very different time to now. Because my assumption is, reading between the lines, the fallback plan was Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
And so who knows if HBO or Warner Brothers are even going to be interested.
Exactly. And even if Netflix renews it for season 2, there's no guarantee it's going to go further than that.
Yeah.
And even if it gets to season 3, there's no guarantee.
It gets statistically, right? Because Netflix wants almost unsustainable growth. I think we talked about this last week on the Saturday show. The problem with this is statistically it gets harder and harder and harder to get renewed for every subsequent season.
Yeah.
So season 1, fine, whatever. It's like you have to double your expectations every single season to get renewed.
And probably put more money into it.
More money into it. So it's one of those things where it's like, I really love the Sandman season 1. I think it's amazing. But at the same time, I'm also worried, I'm more of a pessimist now. Yeah. Because it's like, if Netflix is like behaving like this, then you have to basically... It's unsustainable growth because you're not going to get the same level of...
And there's a worrying precedent because they keep doing this to shows.
Well, look at the Dark Crystal.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was one season. They're like, oh, this costs too much. But like shows like Glow, where they got to like a cliffhanger, and they were going to do one more season. They started filming and then they're like, nah, you cancelled. And it's just like, even like something like Santa Clarita Diet, which I never watched but was popular... Got to like 4 seasons and then like, nah, that's enough.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what are you doing over there?
Because the whole thing is, like obviously you're going to get your best results season 1, maybe season 2 when your base is established. The further you go, the harder growth is going to be, right?
And especially
so if you're going to your watches are going to drop off and your core audience is going to stick with it.
Yeah. So you lose, technically you lose the growth over...
And especially with something like Sandman, where even if they did leave Netflix to go to HBO, right? Not everyone who watched on Netflix is going to make the transition to HBO.
Yeah, you have to pay for a new service.
Yeah. And then with the state of affairs, there's no it'll probably end at season 2 anyway because they're not going to spend the money on season 3 because they've been disabled at launch.
I guarantee you, season 2 comes out. All right, season 2 launches, and they're going to say, "Why didn't you have as many people watching as you did season 1?"
Yeah.
And that's going to be like, sorry, you're not renewed for season 3.
You subscribe to Netflix to watch a Netflix show, and then all of a sudden, it's not on their service anymore. And it's just like, well, it's not a Netflix show. Why am I subscribing to you if even your original content isn't going to be on there? Same with HBO. Yeah. It's just like the streaming wars have hit a point. We always talk about streaming wars, whatever that means. Yeah. But it's hit a point now where it's gotten so bad. It's just like, there's no security, there's no safety. It's like you subscribe to something, you're not getting a secure product.
There's nowhere for content creators to go to ensure that they can do their work.
There's that part of it. There's the part where the content creators don't have a security of like, we can go here and make a show. It's also as an audience member, as a consumer, as a customer.
There's no promise
I'm subscribing and spending quite a lot of money to get certain shows
access to shows
certain times. And all of a sudden, that's not available anymore. Oh, no, now you have to go to this service. Now you have to get this add-on.
Especially with HBO, where there's some of the content that they're removing so they can license it to other things.
Yeah, we talked about it.
It's the cableization of streaming.
And so it's unsustainable, and it's going to get to a point where it's just like...
Piracy is going to become rampant.
Yeah.
And it's like we've talked about before, how piracy is a supply issue. It's not necessarily a money issue. It's just if you don't make things accessible for customers, they're going to have to go somewhere else to find them. Yeah. So we're going to get into a messy situation where the products are so spread out across the world, not just in America, but across the whole world with all the legal rights.
Every time a new show or movie comes out, or there's a classic show or movie I want to watch, I have to like Google, where can I watch this in Australia? And I have to go to several websites and try to figure out. And it's like, you have to rent it here. It's
you're
like,
renting.
My God.
And in a lot of cases, you can't even get content here anyway.
Exactly, which is why we've talked about before.
Or
in
there's a
previous
huge
episodes,
delay. Yeah.
There's a huge piracy community in Australia, bigger than other countries, because like just stuff doesn't come out here.
Yeah, or if it does,
it's on Foxtel.
Extremely expensive.
Or it's on Foxtel and not on streaming.
Yeah, or hard to access.
Yeah, that's
or
right.
if it is accessible,
Or
it's at a lower quality.
It's $100 a month.
And again, not to keep repeating myself, but oftentimes there's like a 4-month delay as well. So it's like the rest of the world have already seen a certain movie or show, and we're like, for example, Nope, for example. I wanted to watch Nope, still avoiding spoilers, got spoiled like the 2 days before we watched it.
Right now, there's a good example of this show I wanted to watch called The Bear.
It's so good.
It's so good, but it doesn't come to Australia on Disney Plus until the end of August.
I had to watch it through other memes, but now it's coming on August 31st to Disney Plus, and it's just like, great, but it's been 2 months or so.
Yeah. And it's a real shame that you had to fly to a country where it was available on Disney Plus just to watch it.
And then fly back.
It's on Hulu.
The tickets cost so much money.
It's such a mess. We've talked about before, rights issues and changing hands and streaming.
It's a very unstable time.
And what's crazy is
we're not even guaranteed a finished product.
Yeah, and we're still in the infancy of this. This is why I'm very worried about Apple TV Plus. Yes, we've been singing their praises, going like, wow, they're the new HBO. But I reckon in a couple of years, it's going to go to hell.
Yeah.
Even HBO, even though they're consistently quite good, now with this Warner problem and the streaming service problem, it's like in a couple of years, we could be like, HBO's now the worst.
No, me and Nathan were talking about that just before. We were talking about like when we got, of course, as proud Americans, we managed to subscribe to HBO Max.
Hey, we paid for it.
Yeah, we paid for it.
Don't worry about how, but we
paid for it completely
legally.
legally.
You had to jump through hoops to get it.
Very cool, very legal. I'm sorry to butcher the Donald. But my point is, when we got it, it was like we have the premium top tier service currently available. Yeah. And me and Nathan were talking the other day.
It was good for about 6 weeks.
Yeah, we were talking about the other well now it's almost on its way to being trash.
When HBO Max came out, and of course we didn't get it here, and we discussed that.
Yeah, it's like surely binge cannot be better than HBO Max, but give it 6 months and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, but we talked about HBO Max came out in the States, and it's just like people were like, "This has the best catalog.
Yeah,
this is probably the best streaming service
they had
other
Turner
than maybe
classic
Netflix
movies.
or
They had
maybe
everything.
Disney Plus." And now it's just like, well, it's just another trashy streaming service.
Like what?
I don't know.
Such a premium brand, HBO, and now
it's
we're
so sad. And these, we talked about on the Saturday episode, these CEOs, executives, they'll make bank. The shareholders will get a bit of
how you going?
Yeah, money, and we're left in the lurch with these unfinished substandard shows. Just random stuff that we can't even access.
Yeah, and on the creating side, it's like even if you can get greenlit, there's still that shadow hanging over you.
Yeah.
How many episodes can you get done? How many seasons? Who knows? Yeah. It's such a period of uncertainty.
And what's even the point anymore? It's like they make these shows. It's like, well, what's the point? They get cancelled before they even get going, before they gain traction. And there's so much content out there that.
Well, that's another thing. We'll get into that in a second. We'll be right back after this short break. You are back on the Tuesday review. Look, talking all things a bit depressing now, streaming and how it's all going to crap.
Yeah, the zenith of the streaming wars. I don't know if that's a way.
The sunset.
The sun's setting on streaming. It's going to start consolidating.
I mean, look, it's never going to go away. We're just in a turbulent time where certain people in positions of power, I guess, have a different mindset on what's important to consumers.
We've talked about this since the podcast began. Like the people, the executives making the decisions are not the creative people. Are thinking on money terms and not thinking on
old world thinking.
Yeah.
So I think eventually we might have an uptick when they have like a realignment about the services. So it's only a matter of time. The negative feedback has to reach a certain level where executives become aware that people are unhappy, and we're slowly getting there. People are making fun of HBO every day.
Yeah, I'd like to.
The share price. I mean, granted, it did increase when the Rehearsal got renewed. Funnily enough, but it was tanking.
But
that's the type of thing which matters to these people is the share price. So if they're stupid decision making, and I know it's hard in business, hashtag not all CEOs or whatever. Yeah. But it can only tank so
Yeah.
hard before they have to have an objective look at the reality.
I'd like to
the
think that
situation.
that's the case, that there's a certain point where this streaming bubble is going to burst and it's just like, okay, something needs to be done about this. But I'm a pessimist, and I've seen human history, and I've seen entertainment history, media history,
Well,
and it's not looking good. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be a good
the cable
future.
problem, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about this before. Cable
Especially
starts off
for-
amazing. You can track it 1-to-1
Yeah.
with cable.
No
Yeah.
commercials. Wow.
No commercials.
Yeah.
Wow, it's all in one package. You're paying one
Yeah.
price,
Adult
and then all of a sudden it's
content, yeah.
add-ons, and we're at
Yeah.
the stage
Yeah, it's
now.
They're
funny.
doing it now with
They're adding-
Netflix
adding
with ads.
ads,
Yeah,
yeah.
HBO with ads.
Or like Amazon, you can get the channels, or you can get MGM
Yeah.
and AMC and all these different
add-ons.
add-on
and-
packages. It's like cable.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
happened to the end? Cable largely died.
Yeah.
So that's what we're happening now. Obviously, the networks are going to need somewhere to sell their content, right?
Yeah.
So it's not going to go away like cable did when streaming came in. But where can they go from here? Or they just have to suck it up and be like, all right, we can't rip as many people off as we thought we could.
I think as
and
long
they
as
have to
people-
consolidate it back into the one.
As
Yeah,
level.
that's
long
what
as
I mean.
man-
Like there
Yeah.
will be a realignment.
Yeah.
It could be, get granted, right? It could be 20 years down the line. I'm not saying it's going to happen next year, but at some point, enough customers are going to be like, "Why should I pay for your terrible service?"
Because the whole
Or
thing-
another
I
service will
think
come and be like, "We're the one who can offer you this
If
what
you-
you want." but
it's the whole. There's Hollywood. There'll be Hollywood accounting going on, but at the same time, you can't have, say, HBO. Right, it's becoming HBO Discovery Plus or whatever it's being. And then they're going to split up into. We'll say you got your different. Like, let's use an example of Amazon Prime. Yeah, Amazon owns MGM. They
Yeah.
sell MGM as a separate thing.
yeah, it's a separate. It's like
A
sub-service.
separate sub-service. You can't keep splitting your product and then
But that's what
selling
they're
it.
doing.
That's what
Yeah,
they're doing. But using the same logic, you're not going to get an install base that's going for every single add-on package, right? So then you're going to be like, well, this is a
Yeah.
failure, this is a failure, this is a failure.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're going to have to come to the point where it's a
Consolidate
failure
it again.
because
But-
you're selling everything separately.
Yeah.
So it's
We talked about this, I think, on our piracy episode we did quite
way
a while
back
ago.
when, yeah.
And I think I said, like, the best way to do it, and if I was techie and I had the motivation, I would try to do it and probably fail. But, like, is to have a... I know there's Plex servers and stuff like
Yeah.
that, but it is to have a
NAS
torrent-style hub where you just, like, you add what you want for, like, 99 cents.
Oh yeah.
Something like that. Maybe not exactly, but it's just like
Yeah.
you just pick and choose what you want to your service. Of course, that would end up adding to more money than if you bought all the
Yeah.
streaming services. But there has to be like something that where you cut out the middleman,
Yeah.
where instead of having the Paramount Plus service and having the
Yeah.
this service and that service, it's just like studios are just like, we release it on our website, you download it to your BitTorrent or your Plex server
Yeah.
or whatever, and you watch it directly there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
yeah.
probably won't work, but we need to get to a point where it's just like you just pick your one streaming service, and then everything comes to there. And
Yeah.
again, there's rights issues, there's different countries and different
Yeah.
problems. It's never going to happen,
No,
but we
yeah.
need to get to a place like that.
Rights issues is such a dumb idea, isn't it? Like the idea that like and I know,
I
we
know
don't have enough time to unpack that
Yeah.
whole thing, but like the idea that a line on a map is like, okay, I have to wait this time
Yeah.
to get it, or
I know there are different laws, and you want to protect the creators.
there
and
should be like
copyright and all that,
there should be like a digital product law. Like I understand for
Yeah.
Blu-rays, yeah, whatever, do what you want on Blu-rays,
It's funny, you
but
bring
it's like
that
we
up
should have like a
because-
digital
Yeah,
law.
we talked about
which
it.
is, like, global.
It's like they think of it in old media terms, and also this stuff is relatively new, especially streaming.
Yeah.
Like, it's still the infancy, and so I think things are just going to keep changing, and I don't think they're going to get better.
Like I said, I think eventually they will, but like it could be 1 year, it could be 20. That's the thing. We don't know how long.
Yeah.
Because like I said, business, right? The successful businesses are the ones which make people happy. So
Are they though? Like, I think at the end of
why
the
do
day,
you think
a lot
Netflix
of
got so
mainstream-
successful after the death of cable? Because it was like,
but then now they're running themselves into the
but
ground.
that's what I mean.
and then
Like
it's just like
it is cyclical. So eventually
there
there'll be
has
a
to be
bit.
something that
Yeah.
stays consistently good.
What
And
has
we
Netflix,
talked about on
Netflix,
Saturday.
Netflix was good for years.
What has
Yeah.
to happen? What it will happen, and what has to happen
Yeah.
is a lot of these smaller streaming services are going to have to die.
Yeah.
Right? And they're going to have to get sold back to Netflix.
We
or
talked
whoever
about it,
remains.
We talked about it on Saturday, like this capitalistic greed, it's not sustainable. Like there needs to be an end point, and capitalism. The problem with capitalism, there's no end point. It's always unsustainable growth. More.
I don't mean this to sound edgy, but the end point is the death of the planet.
Exactly.
And I don't mean that in like an edgy way. I mean that in an actual, practically, literally. Like, there's only so much you can do with capitalism before you start to destroy the planet which you live on.
Which we already are doing.
Yeah, and like again, I don't mean that in the edgelordy way.
No, we need to stop it now, and not only in the Earth death way. Obviously, that's the most important part. But just in the context of this show.
Yeah.
Just in an art and movies and media way.
It's strangling the culture to death.
It's just like, it's not sustainable anymore. You please do something, because we're getting all this crap. It's just content. The farm, like factory.
Yeah.
And the stuff we do want to watch gets cancelled.
Yeah. And like we said, the art and the commerce has gone full to the commerce side.
Yeah, we need realignment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's not sustainable to say, oh, this isn't making money, so we got to do this, do that. It's just like, why are you even doing it in the first place?
Yeah,
Stop
exactly.
Screwing around.
Go back to Wall Street. Get somebody who wants to participate in art.
Yeah, we've said this ad nauseum on the show, but the whole thing is, at the end of the day, for instance, Netflix, if they'd have finished all those shows they cancelled, they still have a better product, because you can go and you can watch the finished product. It's like every time they cancel a show that has one season left, they shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah. That's right, yeah.
Because now you go on, you say, oh, this show's not finished, this is not
for
finished,
the life of me,
why do I bother?
Like, I understand business is complicated, right? And I'm sure that they have these conversations when they're talking about being greenlit. So, like for example, the Dark Crystal, we were Shadow, and that was cancelled. I'm sure they had a discussion about how many seasons do you want, what do you expect to get out of it, or whatever. But you would think... I mean, it's business, but still, you would hope that they'd be like, okay, look, we can give you 2 seasons. Can you make it work in 2 seasons? And but because the business side gets involved,
we've talked about that. Where ideally, these streaming services and studios
would only greenlit things they were willing to go through on,
pay for the whole run.
Yeah,
whether it's successful or not, I know that's a stupid business decision. Yeah. But in terms of streaming, you're gonna get subscribers anyway. What they're doing is just like, you get 1 season, we'll get enough new subscribers who are interested, and then we'll cancel it and move on and do a new show and get a couple more subscribers. But then the subscribers they're losing by cancelling all this stuff has got to be at a similar rate.
Yeah, well, Netflix has been hemorrhaging customers.
Recently, they've been, So it's just
they're down like 20% recently in terms of actual subscribers.
Like Callum said just before, it's just like the best services are the ones that make people happy.
Yeah.
So...
like, the whole thing is, here's a question, boys. How many cancelled shows could they have finished if they didn't make Red Notice or The Grey Man? All of them.
That's what I said. That's what I said on Saturday. Why not put your money into a more HBO style
be more
quality
selective
over quantity?
Yeah.
Instead of all those garbage little bitsy shows that you only did 1 season of. Take all that money and put it into 1 great show or 2 great shows.
As you said before,
like I said, they need all those little shitty shows because they're just throwing everything at the wall, trying to get as many people from around the world of different age groups, of different ethnicities, so on.
Yeah, their performance indicators.
Yeah, they're trying
the growth markets.
And it's this algorithm, clickbaity driven studio mindset, executive mindset that's put us in this situation where we're at this movies as content. Where it's like these shows and movies aren't even shows and movies anymore. No, they're content to get clicks. They're content to get subscribers.
Exactly. So like,
and it's tiring and it's boring and it's ugly and I hate it.
Yeah, it's like they spent at least $200 million on both Grey Man and Red Notice combined. If not more, probably more. But it's like they could have finished the OA, Santa Clarita Diet.
Dark Crystal.
Those movies, those shows probably cost half of whatever the Rock's paycheck was for Red Notice.
So you know what? And that's the frustrating thing. They say, oh, this show's too expensive, and then they go and spend like $100 million on an actor's paycheck for a big movie.
Yeah, because they know that actor will get new subscribers.
Which reminds me of my pet peeve. Right, we say all this, they're spending more money to make another Death Note because the first one sucked.
Take two, try again.
Yeah.
That's my point. I'm like, they're canceling some great quality content to remake Death Note, which they already attempted and failed.
I'm just gonna delete this out of the podcast because we don't need to know about another Death Note. Like, our audience doesn't need to be exposed to this.
I know.
Just wait until. I mean, there was already the Cowboy Bebop live action Netflix.
Again, we don't need to talk about that.
There's the One Piece live action Netflix show.
We don't need to talk about
and
that.
the last Avatar, the Last Airbender.
We don't need to talk about that.
No wonder they're losing subscribers. My God.
It's just.
It's sad.
Such an ugly, disgusting. This is why I always, for the last 6 years we've been doing this show. All we do is complain, and all I do is complain about movies.
To be fair, it's hitting the heights like right now. Yeah,
it's because of stuff like this, and this is why
people are suddenly starting to take notice. Though we've been complaining for years, but you go online and people are suddenly sitting up this is weird.
The proof's in the pudding. HBO's dying a fiery death as we speak. Netflix is dying a little bit of a slower death, but they're not doing good. And so now they're finally seeing the fruits of their nefarious labor.
But like I said, I'm a pessimist. I don't see it changing as long as people keep spending money because they want to be up on the latest show. They don't want to be spoiled. They have FOMO. They don't want to miss out.
I mean, at least comparatively, Nathan Fielder's show doesn't cost that much.
Well,
who knows how much it costs? Honestly,
and hopefully, I really hope that at least it gets one more season, and we can get another glimpse into his insane,
twisted mind. I'm sure they spend a lot of money on having lawyers on retainer as well.
HBO's lawyers would probably like the whole.
Where do we start?
Every time they see the dailies, like, I don't know about that.
Or they were counting fat stacks of money for all the NDAs they had to write up, all the contracts they had to write up. Wow, he's such a genius, and it's such an insane show, and it's like nothing I've ever seen before. And
I think we'll get the full season. I think that it's just like the word of mouth currency alone.
Yeah.
Because they're going to need it with the bad press.
Yeah, they're going to need
it.
Press,
in an age of viral content, he's the gold vein.
Although it will be interesting to see if he references cancellation in the next season.
That would be
He's
funny.
like, I don't know if I'm going to get cancelled. Let's rehearse just in case.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The possibilities are endless.
Yeah. It's just,
I reckon that's all.
Yeah, I think that's it.
We're all feeling a bit sad now.
We're all feeling a bit sad and tired, and we need to go eat.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody. You can catch the Tuesday review on the Facebook, the Twitter, and the Instagram. You can listen to our episodes on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen.
Yep.
We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening, everybody. Adios, cousins.